told, and what was your reaction when you found out you were working the Super Bowl?
Well, it was we knew prior to the phone call. We got an email that the phone calls were coming out on Tuesday, the 13th. That Super Bowl crew was going to be announced, and that we also knew that whoever worked the divisional round would be assigned the Super Bowl. So it's not rocket scientist. I was one of 4, so I had a 25% chance of getting that phone call. So it's nerve-wracking all morning, and we also track record was that they usually come in the afternoon. So about 2:15. Not about, exactly, at 2:15 the phone rang, and it was the NFL office. It was Dean Blandino. And the first thing he asked me was, do you have one more game in you? And I said, sure, I got 2 more in, kind of like Aaron Rodgers where he had 120 minutes. I said, sure. He says, I only need you for 1. So I was pretty excited. And he went through telling me about the year that I had and all that, and went into the rest of the crew, and then he says, don't release it, and I've got to, call the other people because of the pecking order and how it goes. I said, thanks, and he said, congratulations, and more to come.
Talk about how busy you've been since news broke about your selection of Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, it's amazing about not only the media like yourself, but as far as organizing travel. I mean, through the league, as soon as phone calls finally came out, probably about 4 o'clock, we had an email sent to us to start organizing our travel, which was complicated because not only taking my wife but the 3 kids and working around school, I had to work out flights. The NFL only covers myself, so I had to work out what was the best flights for the family, for the kids leaving on Friday. Of course, airfare is more expensive as you get closer towards the weekend. When we're coming back, so that took a while, and then working on hotel accommodations. The league will cover my hotel, but we want to stay in the same facility, and then next thing you know, the phone just started ringing off the wall. I had friends that I hadn't talked to in 20 years. Tickets were a pain in the butt. Can you get me tickets? Well, people don't realize that tickets cost $1,200 a piece. And they just thought I got them for free. Well, geez, that's not the case. I had, so I'm working on my tickets for my family, and then trying to take care of, some of my close friends that are going, and but people are calling you up, congratulating you. So it's nonstop, but it's a good nonstop. I'm not complaining. It's good.
Bill, a few years ago, Bill, you were a Super Bowl alternate. Tell me what that was.
Well, again, that was a great experience. Again. That was completely unexpected. Got an email that I was going to be the alternate, and what it does is it prepares you for the process. So I kind of know what the process is, and when the meetings are, and what's expected when we get there Wednesday night, Thursday morning, and what we, when the meetings are, when our free time is going to be. So it gives you that aspect of when to prepare and get ready for the game. So that's what it's geared up for as an alternate, and now it's totally different. Once kickoff starts, when you get ready for being on the field, but it does prepare you for. I knew about the logistics, about travel, about when our meetings are, and how that all works. So it did help.
When you were an alternate, were you thinking, someday I'm going to be the umpire in this game?
Well, you always think that. If you don't think you're going to work the highest game, then you shouldn't be out there. We strive, our ego strives to work the pinnacle of our profession, which is the Super Bowl. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I thought someday I would be out there. When? Who knows when you're going to get that opportunity, but you got to be mentally prepared and physically prepared for it. So yeah.
Every year the Super Bowl is the most watched program on television. Last year's Super Bowl between Seattle and Denver drew an average audience of 111.5 million people. Number 2 all-time to the Patriots-Giants Super Bowl a few years ago. This year's game is expected to be another record setter with predictions in 115 to 117 million range. With that said, where a call here or there could determine the outcome, what's your mindset going into a game like this?
Well, they answer the first question. The first part of that question, I was alternate on that Super Bowl where that last record was, Giant New England, and now this one. We don't really get into how many are watching it. It's who's at the stadium, and then again, like I mentioned earlier, you get caught up in the hoopla a little bit of, the Super Bowl hype per se until kickoff. And once kickoff starts, again, I've never been there, so I can't honestly tell you any more than that. But once the kickoff starts, it's going to be just like any other football game. I hope I'm going to officiate it just the way I've normally done, which got me there.
Every Super Bowl official gets a ring. Talk about you getting your first ring. How cool is that?
Well, it's going to be pretty emotional, pretty exciting. Again, the part of the experience of being the alternate is you're sitting in that first meeting, and the league passes around the ring size chart, the size of your rings, and as an alternate, you're sitting there going, and you're left out as an alternate, and now you're sitting there going, oh man, I wish I was there. And part of the alternates have never been on the Super Bowl, have had a ring prior, so being your first ring is going to be pretty special. So I'm looking forward to that ceremony, which will happen in April at our union meeting.
Like during the regular season, Bill, when do you find out what game you're going to be working?
Monday. Well, what happens is it's a 3-week block, so we know our assignments 3 weeks in advance. So on Monday, we get an email from the league. It's a spreadsheet showing by referee, and my referee was Walt Coleman this year. Walt Coleman's crew, and it lists all the crew with what game we have, and we get that 3 weeks out in advance. And then from there, we get that on Monday, so we have to make our travel by Friday for that block coming out. So each Monday, we're 3 weeks out.
Take me through an average week during the NFL season. Obviously, your own business here, Umpire Agency. Talk me through an average week in the NFL.
The average week in the NFL is a little bit more than what the average person thinks it is. We probably put in, if you want to succeed in this business, you want to put in 30 to 40 hours of work during the week other than game day. I'll take you from Sunday, say. Okay, Sunday we have to be at the stadium 3 hours prior to kick. Game's over. We got about an hour of paperwork after the game, fouls, track and all that, and then we catch our flights home. Hopefully, being that I fly into a small airport, I can connect home, which usually I can. So I get home midnight, Sunday night, Monday morning, depending upon where I come in. And I come to work at my full-time job at the Umpire Agency. But then on Monday starts the process of reviewing the game in your head. If you had a tough call, we get a DVD right after the game. It's on a little flash drive of the TV version of the game. So, if there's a tough call, I'm going to review it real quick just to make sure in case the league calls me on it or just for my own self. But on Monday, I'll watch my game tape and review it on my own, which takes about 3.5 hours. And at the same time on Monday, the league reviews it, and that's what they call the grading process, which is where they look at correct calls, correct judgment, incorrect judgment, mechanics, are you in the right spot, all that goes into every play. So you can't take a play off, even though if the score might be 50-0, you still have to officiate that game like it's 0-0. That's one of the tough spots that you got to do. So we do that Monday. They grade the film on Monday themselves in New York. On Tuesday, we get what we call our grades. That comes to us via an email through their website, and it'll list all the plays during the game, 180 plays, say, in the game. So say play 62, I called offensive holding, they'll have correct call, or they might have incorrect call. Okay, depending upon, say it's an incorrect call, I'll have the opportunity to give my version of why I made that call through the referee, and through an email or a phone call to the referee. And then they might say a no call, like I missed something. I missed a hold, or I missed a hands to a face, or something along that. I'll have, again, my opportunity. Maybe I had a 360-pounder block my view because they had the high overhead camera see it, or they had the reverse end zone camera see it, which I was blocked. I might have an opportunity to win. Very rarely, but I might have an opportunity. So I give my version. It all goes to the referee. The rest of the crew do all that, and that's every play. mechanically if you're in the right spot, and they might downgrade you. Hey, he was in a bad spot, and you can. And that all through the referee. So that's on Tuesday afternoon. The referee compiles it, shoots an email back to the league. Now there's 7 supervisors sitting there. They get it all piled back in Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, and then Wednesday morning they all sit and they review it. And, all the categories of offensive holding from every game is put in. Boom, 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 boom. Then that's the final verdict, whether they agree or disagree. That comes back out to us on Wednesday. So you're sitting around saying, "Oh, am I going to win this case or I'm not going to win this case?" Lawyers in the world make a better summary than little old me. They can say better words. But anyways, some win the case. Very rarely do you win the case. But anyways, it goes through on the Wednesday. We call it the Nuremberg jury. They get it all done. That comes back Wednesday. Meanwhile, on Tuesdays and Thursdays is my workout day. I got to stay in so much shape due to my size and my metabolism. So I work out Tuesdays and Thursdays with a trainer. But Wednesdays is that. And then Thursday is my down day. I don't do any football on Thursday. That's my off day. Friday, depending upon if I've got to go travel, I'll start my travel. That would be my travel day because I have to be in the city on Saturday by noon, depending upon where I'm at. So again, if I got to go West Coast, I might leave Friday, depending upon my airlines. But that's my typical week.
Bill, how did you first get into officiating, and do you remember your first ever game?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's funny you said that. Well, again, I played football in college at Alfred University. And then I was a 5th year senior, so my 5th year I coached at Alfred when we had a really good year. We were undefeated, which was my brother Bob's senior year. So I thought maybe coaching was the way to go, but I didn't have the phys ed degree. So when I graduated, I had to get a job, so I got into the insurance field. I started at Prudential in Rochester, right out of college. So I go into Prudential in Rochester, and back then in the olden days, they had desks right next to each other. So sitting right next to me was a guy by the name of Frank Marafino, who I didn't really remember at the time, but Frank sits next to me. He says, "I remember you." He says, "I officiated you in high school. I had your Wellsville game, and he had a couple other games." He goes, "Have you ever thought about officiating football?" And at the time, I said, "No." I said, "I think I want to do coaching." He goes, "No, you should do officiating." He goes, "Because you can still work your normal job during the day, still do officiating, and less stress. Probably make close to the same amount of money if you divide the amount of money by the hours coaching put in." I said, "All right, I'll go to a meeting." So Frank at the time was the president of RCCFO, Rochester Chapter Certified Football Official. So I go to the first meeting, and make a long story short, I got hooked right then. I said, "You know what? This keeps me involved in the game, and it also, I can work a normal day job." So started out officiating youth. My very first game was at Livonia, youth football. So I'm out there, and I forget who we're playing, but I'll never forget it. We had, as youth football, it can get a little emotional with parents being coaches. So this coach comes up to me after the game, and he punches me in the chest, and he goes, "I want to fight you out in the parking lot." This is my very first game. Never forget it. And I go, "What?" He goes, "I want to fight you out in the parking lot. I think you made a bad call." I said, "Really?" I said, "Well, listen, do me a favor." I said, "At least let me get my shirt off first. So then when we're out in the parking lot, nobody knows that I'm still an official." Now, I'm kind of young at this time. You're talking 1981. So, again, he never showed. I was out in the parking lot because we all know how you dress out in the parking lot and you're getting ready. And I'm taking my shirt off and I'm looking for this guy and he's nowhere around. So I said, "Okay, one down for me." So Frank Marafino is the one that got me into officiating. So then when I got into high school and I graduated, moved up into the varsity ranks and you pick a position. I always wanted umpire, not because of my size, but I was a catcher in baseball and it's control of the game. I felt I wanted to touch the football every down. I played college football. I just loved being in the middle, and I felt that was where I should be. So I concentrated that in high school. Then another very influential person by the name of Don Serra, who was working Division I football at the time. He was working the Big East. At the time, it wasn't the Big East, but he was working, you know, the Syracuse, Army-Navy games. He was an umpire, so he was my mentor. He says, Bill, he says, have you ever thought of getting into college football? And I said, yeah. I said, you know, I've thought about it. He says, well, you need to apply because you're still young and, you know, time to do it. So I applied for Division III. I got into Division III after you meet the criteria. Worked some games in Division III, and then he comes up to me again, Donnie, and he goes, have you ever thought of applying to the NFL? I said, oh, Donnie. He goes, no, really. He says, do it while you're young. He says, if you wait until you're X amount of age, you're going to get bypassed. Just send an application. I said, all right. Now, he was my mentor, so I listened to him. So I sent an application into the NFL, and I get a response back. You know, congratulations, you're on our watch sheet or whatever. So I got promoted from Division III into 1AA, the Yankee Conference back then. So you're doing, back then you're doing, Connecticut wasn't the biggest, you're doing Connecticut, you're doing the Ivy League schools. And they'd always have an NFL back then would have a scout up in the press box, and they're scouting whoever applied. Well, the clock operator would come back down, and they'd say, well, which one of you guys applied to the NFL? And you really kind of were like, well, I didn't want to, you know, because you piss everybody off, especially being a young buck. So we kind of kept it quiet, and finally got out that I applied. So you keep moving up, and then you get into 1AA, or 1A. I came out of the Big East, you got to spend at least 5 years there. So I get into the Big East, and again, next thing I know, I get a packet at my door, welcome to NFL Europe. I'm like, holy cow. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I had a number assigned to me. I got 129. I'm like, oh man, a 3-digit. I'm not going anywhere with a 3-digit number. You know, this is 1997, somewhere around there. So I worked NFL Europe for 3 years, and then in 2000, in June of 2000, Jerry Seaman called me. You know, same basic thing, working the Super Bowl. He says, hey, how's your day going? I said, pretty good, Mr. Seaman. He goes, well, congratulations. You just got promoted to the National Football League. Here's what you got to do. Boom, 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 boom. The list of 9-mile things long that I had to do. Here's your referee, Bernie Kukar. He's going to call you in a few days. I said, oh, wow. I was like, called the family. I'm like, holy cow, I made it. And then the rest just, kept going from there. So that's kind of how the steps. It took 20 years to do all that. That's a 20-year period in 5 minutes that I just told you.
Bill, one of the things that I've always known about you is just, you're always a kind of a giving back kind of guy. I remember a few years ago at a modified game in Livonia, the officials didn't show up. You stepped up to officiate, an NFL official stepped up to officiate a modified game. You've always been a member of this community that has given back. Talk about giving back to the Livonia community and what that means to you.
Well, again, and not only to the community but to the officiating world too. I also give back to the high school chapter, and I'll do anything to help a brother official. But I think it's important that I give back to the community, because the community has given me a lot in my support, both family and myself in my career. So it's just one of the things, the natures of my personality of giving back to the community. And it might not be monetarily, like, hey, my business, I'll donate X amount, but I like to, like you mentioned, I'll work JV games if they need me. I'll work the clock at basketball games. I'll keep score. I'll do whatever they want. And do I gravitate towards the athletic side? Yeah, but that's my background. But if they want me to hold a poster at Main Street for something, I probably would do it if it's a good cause. But I'm always a give back, and that's the way I feel. I mean, I'm lucky to be where I'm at, so I feel that I want to give back to the community. Someday maybe I can help somebody else get where I'm at.